What do I have to do here?
Everyone, we're lucky to have John Faudree, who's a good friend of Zach and mine from a long time ago. John's been coaching for a really long time, ran Rochester Yacht Club for a really long time, so he's familiar with the high school circuit as well as the Club 420 and laser circuits, and probably opties too. He's kind of done it all. Done some professional coaching with some big boat teams, and what is it, like 7 years ago now, 8 years ago, he took over the Jacksonville University team.
Yeah, it'll be 8 years in the fall.
Yeah, so in 8 short years, John has brought the Jacksonville team from a startup team to a top 25 consistently ranked team in the nation. And I think last year you qualified for every national championship, right? One of 3 teams to do that.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So very fast rise to one of the more competitive teams in the country. So we'll let John take it over. Maybe you can explain a little bit about the team and then jump into some boat handling stuff.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to have you guys on with me today. Today I want to mostly focus on boat handling with tacks, roll tacks, etc. Obviously, a lot of you guys are doing high school sailing, and high school, college sailing. Roll tacks become even more important than they are, in Club 420 or opti sailing, because the races are so short. You can't tune the boats any differently than anybody else. You guys probably know all that. So the boat handling becomes really, really critical. And we work really hard at JU to become, the top roll tackers in the country. That's sort of our goal, especially initially. We weren't one of the top teams in the country, but we strive to have the best boat handling skills. So I just wanted to share a bunch of things. I see a lot of kids come in as freshmen and have decent tacks, decent roll tacks. We just want to take things to that next level, get really superior boat handling stuff, especially when we get into team racing. We were never the best team race team in the country until, now we're starting to become really good. But we knew that other teams did not want to get in a tacking duel with us, because that's when we would crush people. So, small victories here and there. But anyway, so we're going to be talking about tacking today. And if you guys have any questions, if I don't explain something enough, feel free to jump right in there. The first thing I have is just two quick little videos here. One showing a loon takeoff. I don't know if anyone has ever seen a loon takeoff. That's the top left corner. You can see that guy, it takes a long time for him to actually take flight. And on the other side, we have a bald eagle taking flight. And the reason why I put this up here is this is the difference between a bad roll tack and a good roll tack. If you really start to think about your sails as actual wings and how best to take off, you'll find some success. So all right, a couple things that I see when people are learning how to roll tack, or sort of younger, is just rushing everything and focusing too much on the roll. As we just saw with the 2 birds taking off, the loon is flapping its wings up and down like crazy, where the bald eagle does a nice slow up with its wings and then a huge pump down. Right? One of the fallacies about a roll tack is it's about, just calling it a roll tack. What we want to focus on is a flatten. It should be called a flatten tack. The roll is just a means to get a good flatten. So when you go back out, when you guys get a chance to get back on the water, really think about slowing your tacks down. There should be no rush in a tack until it comes to the flattening part. So being patient, slow it down, don't try so hard. And then really looking, if you're sailing double-handed boats, really looking to work together. We used to say one big fat man when you're hiking. Some of you guys have probably heard that, you know, getting your weight together when you're going upwind. The same thing on the roll tack. We really need to slow everything down, work together. We see too many times, you know, that the skipper's rushing to flatten the boat without the crew. Hardly ever do you see a crew flatten before a driver, but sometimes do. But really trying to work together on that. So we're going to give you a couple keys. We want to talk about one of the things. Whoops, I missed a slide here. Here we go. I'm a little out of order. Sorry about that. There are 3 ways to turn a boat without using the rudder. All right. I'll open this up to questioning, not counting sail controls, bang, et cetera, et cetera. I'll open this to sort of discussion from you guys. So what's one way we can turn a boat without using the rudder? Especially, let's focus on turning to windward today, since we're talking about tack. So heading up, turning to windward. What's one way we can do that?
Heeling to leeward.
I'm sorry?
Heeling the boat to leeward.
Heeling to leeward, right? That's one way? Yep, good. You have a second way, or anybody else have a second way?
Using the sails.
Which sail?
Well, both, but the main if you're gonna go to windward, and then after you pass head to wind, then you'll pull on the jib to complete the turn.
Okay, so let's think just turning the boat though. Turning the boat to windward. What are we going to do with our main?
I think you would trim it in.
Trim it in. Very good. Very good. All right. So we can heel the boat to leeward, trim the main in. What's another way? Let's. I'll give you a hint. It's going to be body weight. What's another way we can turn the boat towards the wind? Has anyone ever stood on the back of their boat before? When you're just playing around? Or for that matter, stood on the bow? All right, it's hard to like jump in here and stuff, but actually moving your weight aft in the boat helps turn the boat to windward. All right, moving your weight forward turns your boat down. So keep those 3 things in mind. One of the things we want to, well, we'll jump back, keep that in mind as we go through this. The last piece before we get into some video stuff I want you to think about is how fast you turn the boat. We just talked about not using the rudder, right? So we're going to use everything else we can do to turn the boat without using the rudder. I've got 2 sets of boats here going through a tack, the yellow to blue, and then red to green. One of the things we see people do a lot is really try to rush through a tack, turn the boat really hard and get through the tack quickly. All right, we want you to stop thinking like that. We want the one time where we can gain distance towards that windward mark, actually sail towards our windward mark, is when we turn into the wind to go through a tack. So we want to be using, especially you guys sailing 420s, using that momentum of the boat to turn you up towards that windward mark and bring you around. Gaining, you can see the red to green tacks here. The red boat gains distance to windward while they tack, and using that momentum. If you turn really quickly, if you push that rudder over too hard, you're going to stop your boat as you turn, and then you're also not gaining any distance to windward. The last thing here, I've got the wind coming from the top of the screen here, right? Whoops. And then why do I have a wind arrow pointed at the beam of the green boats here? After the tack. That would really be the flatten of the tack. Why would I draw an arrow there? Anyone want to jump in on that? When you flatten, your apparent wind shifts aft, all right? It turns back. As you flatten, you feel, or if I'm waving like this towards you guys, I feel the wind on this part of my hand, right? That's the apparent wind. Okay, so when you flatten the boat, the apparent wind shifts aft, and then you'll notice, it's hard to see probably on your screens, but I've got little sails here with their sails halfway out, sort of like on a beam reach. We want to ease those sails, so when we flatten, we're creating lift across our sails, and that's going to shoot us forward. If you don't ease your sail, then when you flatten, your boat will actually slide underneath your sails, and that's where you scoop a lot of water. So a lot of you, I'm sure some of you guys have flattened the boat and taken on a lot of water. One of the things that might be the cause of that is if you don't ease your main enough on the flatten. Whoops, let me go back here. All right, when we're going upwind, all right, if you were about to tack, you're about to tack and you pull your rudder, your centerboard up halfway, what's going to happen to your boat? Say I'm just going upwind and I pull up my centerboard halfway. And I'm not done it. Don't even worry about the tack part. What's going to happen to your boat? Anyone want to jump in on that?
You're gonna slide.
Mary? You're going to slide to the side, right? So what we don't want to do right before we tack is heel to leeward. I see a lot of people heeling their boat to leeward as they go into a tack. All right, that's fun. That's great around a leeward mark, right? When we're going from a downwind to upwind course, especially up to like beam reach, that heel to leeward is really great for us. When you do it on a tack, you heel to leeward on a tack, your boat slides sideways, you turn really quickly again, like we just showed you in the last slide. You turn really quickly, right? But you also slide sideways. I call it a Tokyo drift. Anybody ever see that movie? I think you guys are pretty young for Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, but all of you guys have seen cars drifting, right? Now it's important to remember in Formula One racing or NASCAR, they don't drift, right? They're not drifting around corners. They're keeping their boat, their tires gripping that road the whole way around, all right? When they start to drift, that's really slow. Think about that as you go in. Sorry, I'm gonna mute that for you. Now, I want you to watch. You see how they heel to leeward? And I want you to watch right around the stern of their boat. We're gonna actually be able to see a weight coming off the stern. And you can actually see the boat drifting out here to the side. All right, really just kind of, you're losing momentum, the boat's momentum by drifting sideways through that tack. And this, for them, it really screws up everything after that. All right, but we just talked about a couple ways to turn the boat without using the rudder. We also want to focus on those things. We can turn the boat without heeling the boat to leeward. We slide sideways and we Tokyo drift there if we heel the boat to leeward. All right, keep that in mind as we go forward. One of the ways we can turn the boat, you watch the driver, slides aft just a little bit. So he's facing chest and knees forward, and he can come up, big flatten on the boat. For here, we want to take a look at the crew. This is where we get our roll from. If you look, we're going to be looking at the rudder a lot in our tacks, mostly to be able to see how far we actually heel the boat. All right, you can see that the rudder is fully out of the water, so we know that's a good roll. All right, and look where they are. They're at the apex of the heel is when they're on the rail, and that comes from this crew right here having a straight arm as she comes up to the high side. So there's no big, we're not doing any big roll here with the crew. but we're getting the roll right here. See how they pull the boat up to the high side as they're pulling the rail to their butt instead of just pulling their body to the rail. All right, that's what creates the heel. That's why we don't need to do any big crazy roll to windward here. Like the crew, look how far in she's sitting. Now the driver does get his butt a little wet here, but he'd probably be better off if he would slide his butt into the boat a little bit here, making it easier to get up to the high side. Our whole goal here is not about this roll, that initial roll to windward, but getting up to the high side and pulling that rail to our butts with a big flatten. Couple other things I'm going to point out here. So we talked about the crew, that straight arm as she comes up. Well, we're going to keep going back to that. It's hard to see it right here, but if the crew keeps her arm straight, she's going to be able to pull that boat over on top of her. The other things we mentioned there was look how far these sails are eased on the flatten, right? And they're not luffing at all. That goes back to the whole thing we were just talking about, that apparent wind. The apparent wind is now coming from the side of their boat instead of right in front. We're generating lift as we flatten the boat around our sails and shooting our boat forward. One more thing with the crew here is I want you to look at this, her left foot. We call that the dangle foot. That left foot never goes under the hiking strap as she comes up. We turn, step, the first foot over goes under the strap. That second foot stays up. That's her dangle foot that's dangling there. And then she'll slide or step back into the boat. And look how she doesn't go right to her butt. She's not sitting, she's standing, kind of crouch mode. All right, balancing the boat as we go forward. She never sits until, okay, she feels pretty good about the boat being the right angle, and then moves forward. So if we eliminate the leeward heel, that's going to be a really good thing. The other thing is when we talked about being patient and not rolling too soon. We're going to look at what happens when you heel to windward too early. We really want to make sure that we never try to roll the boat until that jib is backwinded. All right, the jib is going to now turn the boat around for us. We don't want to start a roll before, because we talk about heeling to leeward, heads the boat up, heeling to windward, heads the boat down. So we're going to just kind of watch how this boat stalls out. I'm going to play it full speed for you first, and then we're going to go down and break it down. I want you to look at how this boat kind of stalls out as they go to windward, because they're just slightly heeled to windward before we go head to wind. And that kind of just throws off the whole rhythm of the tack afterwards. So again, we'll kind of look at it in slow motion here. The crew's doing a really good job crouching, trying not to heel the boat to windward. But if you look right here, she's already on the windward rail, and the boat's just barely heeled to windward, and that jib is nowhere near backwinding. So that means now we've got to use extra rudder, extra tiller here. Look how hard he jams that tiller over to turn the boat. You can see here it's still heeled to windward. Now you can really see it heeling to windward here, and that jib isn't even backwinded yet. And it just stalls the boat out. He's got to use extra tiller. He's got it almost hard over, and it just really kills his speed. Say the flatten is pretty good here. All right, big ease, tiller's down, but just that little bit, you know, we're getting pretty darn nitpicky here, but I wanted you guys to be able to see just how bad it is if you try to start your roll too early, and certainly how bad it is if you roll too soon. You know, like everything's kind of messed up here on this tack towards, it's not bad, but it's not the best. All right, so keep those two things in mind. Here we're going to really just watch the crew. Pay a lot of attention to the crew here. How well she moves in the boat. We just talked about how we don't want to heel to windward, right? So we know that as the boat heads up, head to wind, the pressure is going to come off the sails, and if we don't do anything, the boat's automatically going to heel to windward, like what happened in the video before. Now here with this crew, watch how she moves here. As we're heading up, she's already sliding in. She knows the boat's going to heel to windward. She comes into the middle of the boat. Look how that boat's perfectly flat all the way up through. She saw the jib backwind. Look at the driver. Comes over. Now she does bend her arm a little bit slightly there, but look at how they're pulling that boat, that rail to their butts. And again, look how far out of the water this rudder is here. Again, the rudder coming out of the water doesn't have anything to do with the tack other than is for a reference point for us. Again, big flatten, sails are eased. A little over flat in there, but the driver stands up and saves the day. They don't heel to windward. All right. So again, for you crews out there, you want to be really thinking about feeling that boat coming into the tack, always keeping the boat flat or just the tiniest bit of heel to leeward, but never heel to windward before the jib's backwinded. A couple other things we want to look at here is how she brings both feet on the same side of the centerboard trunk. If we don't do that, a lot of crews keep their feet on either side of the centerboard trunk. If you have yet that foot to windward on the centerboard trunk here, then as soon as you stand up, you're pushing down on that rail when we're trying to pull the boat to us. Right now, all our weight is on that leeward side here, right? Feet included. So now it's really easy. Now all you have to do as a crew, just stand up, and basically it's like climbing a ladder. Stand up, whichever arm grabs the rail, that arm is also going to grab that foot is going to step up. It's going to be your first foot. Now, all this stuff, right? So far, we've just been looking at FJs. I know you guys sail FJs some, but a lot of you sail 420s. In the Z420, if you guys sail Z420s, we still face backwards in the Z420 like an FJ, but in a regular club 420, we'd probably sit facing the crew facing forward and tack facing forward. The Z420 or the E420 Zim's boat, there's more forward buoyancy, and then so they just ride a little higher, and we've got to stay forward. We'll see some more pictures of that in the future here. But just some things to keep in mind there. Here I did just some tacks to kind of review some of the key points here. If we start with a picture on the top left, we're looking at the crew. We have since corrected this, but again, a lot of crews come in. She was a freshman here, so they come in trying to roll the boat, right? Doing everything they can to roll the boat and getting their, shoulders way out like this. But the whole key to a good tack, and let me go back here for the crew or a good roll, excuse me. The first part of the tack, right? The roll right here, I forgot to mention this, is pulling on the jib. All right. I always tell the kids that I will give them $100 if they rip that block out of the side of the boat, or the fair lead out of the boat on a 420. What the jib goes through on the jib sheet goes through on the 420. If they pull that out, I'll give them $100. I've been saying that for about 20 years, maybe more, and it's never seen anybody do that or pull or pull it out yet. Our FJs are getting a little old now, so I probably have to not say that anymore, but I don't want to lose $100. But the point is, the jib here, this jib block or fair lead on the 420 is what gets that roll. If we go back to this next video, I want you to, or next picture, all right, look at her angle there. It's just simple physics that if she sat up straighter, she'd be pulling at a much better angle to pull the boat over on top of her. Here, this leaning out thing, she's getting her shoulders out a little bit, but she brings down that angle, this angle here, right, of the jib sheet. If she sat straighter up, then she'd be pulling at a much better angle, and that would pull the boat over on top of her. Again, it goes back to that very first or second slide we were talking about. Don't try so hard. Be patient. For drivers, if we're looking at this middle lower picture, really focused on this hand switch. All right. Again, I'll show a video later of somebody not getting that hand switch done. This is the key for the driver on the flat. And if you can get that hand switch done, you can control the ease of the main and control the boat. If you don't get that done, it's going to cause problems. All right. One of the keys here is, I see a lot of people mess this up, is when you grab that tiller extension hand, if your main sheet hand, we need our thumb towards our hip and our fingers pointed down to get that tiller extension to come out, right, like a microphone and not a frying pan. If you have your palm up, right, and your thumb out, then when you pass the tiller extension through, then you're going to be holding it like a frying pan. And we know we don't want to do that. I'm sure your coaches have mentioned that. And the last thing about this is look how far he has his arm all the way behind his back. This hand should never go past your hip. The main sheet hand, tiller extension hand, should never pass your hip. You always have to pass that tiller extension all the way through. If you don't, that's when you get the tiller extension in the life jacket. Has anyone ever had that happen to them? I'm sure it's happened to some of you. If you don't want to get your tiller extension caught in your life jacket, really work to try to pass that tiller extension behind you. All right, the other key things are foot position, right? His foot goes right under the fort on an FJ or the traveler bar on the 420. All right, that's going to lock him down. You can see this next picture. He has all his weight just on that one foot and can really get a good hike flat on the tack. All right, he's got the whole cowboy rodeo flat in here. Main sheet and tiller in the same hand as he flattens. And that's usually enough to get that main out enough so we have it eased on the flatten. All right, again here for the driver, or excuse me, for the crew, is notice again how straight her arm is. When you have that straight arm, you're going to be able to pull that rail to your butt instead of your body to the rail. And then again, we want to look at the dangle foot here. See, this is a good picture of her, just her foot way up. We'll see that crew tack some more. The one thing that we had to fix here in one of the videos we show you later, she over trims the jib a lot. She's since corrected that. Again, she was only a freshman here, or second semester freshman, something like that. Anyway, a couple of key points. Here we are. If you don't get that hand switch done, this is what your tacks end up looking like. You can't control the boat. You can't control the boat on the flat unless you get that hand exchange done. This kid's from Spain, so we always bust on the Europeans about having really bad tacks. Again, it takes a while for the Europeans to correct this, but once they do, their tacks are so much better. I'll just let this go one more time because it's kind of funny. But good example of why we got to get that hand exchange done. All right. Couple points here. We see as she goes into the tack here, our boat's a little too heeled. All right. And one of the things she recognized right away, okay, the boat's too heeled, and I'm going to stop that before I continue with my tacks. She's like, oh, okay, now the boat's flat. Now I'm not worried. Sorry, it's a little shaky here. I'm not sure why, but we'll go through some of these key points here. Again, she was heeled. She said, well, I'm going to stop my turn, get the boat flat, and now I'll go ahead with the tack. One of the things we talked about before is moving our weight aft, right? Real key for you drivers to get your butt back just a little bit. It does a couple things, all right? It allows us to face our body more forward in the boat, all right? Our knees and feet need to be facing forward as we go in the tack. Slide your butt back just a little bit. Again, we already mentioned that helps turn the boat up. When you do this, if you slide back, face your body forward. Now it's just a simple side step up to the windward rail. A lot of people with their trying to do a big roll tack, and they keep their body perpendicular to the boat, their body facing perpendicular to the boat. Now they have to do a full 180 as they come up. All right, so we want to take one of those steps out of that turn, and coming up to the windward rail, we want to make it a little simpler and just sidestep up to the windward side. You can see it nicely here. See our feet facing forward, knees facing forward, then it's just a step, lock your foot under that fort or traveler bar on a 420, and you can see how aggressively she flattens, shoulders way out, just crushes the flatten. One thing we can see here is she doesn't ease her main enough. So watch the stern, because she doesn't ease her main enough. Watch how the stern of the boat slides sideways. It's, obviously it's cut off. We can't see the water here, but we can just look at that corner of the boat and look how it slides sideways as they flatten. There's a little Tokyo drift right here, right? And that's because she doesn't have her main out enough on the flatten. She would probably scoop some water right there on the flatten. All right, so a little more main ease. Obviously here we were talking about the crew with that jib just being blasted on. We can't do that. We got to make sure that we aren't she's really using the sheet to pull herself back into the boat. You've got to be really careful not to do that. Using your foot, she's sort of under you can see this, her aft foot is under the strap and also under the thwart on the flatten. And then she gets that good dangle foot, and she comes back and look how she's right here. She's looking at the stern of the boat, making sure the boat doesn't heel to windward. Again, she's shifting her weight between her feet to make sure the boat's balanced, right, before she sits down. Now, what she really should be doing is looking at the jib over trim. But again, it was one of those things. First, she's trying to work on not over flattening and balancing the boat. We'll get to that jib part later on. I think she does a really nice job now. All right. Again, if we're just watching, the crew brings both feet together. Look, no one's doing a big roll here, right? No one's getting their butt wet. We don't need to do, get your butt wet on the tacks. If someone says get your butt wet on the tack, just be like, I don't need to do that. Especially you people sailing up north in the freezing cold. All right. Just like the driver, the crew is facing aft, right? Knees are pointed to the back of the boat, the stern, and her chest. Same thing. We don't want to have to do a full 180 coming up. All right. Again, not a huge roll, but she's pulling that windward rail over there with a jib, and now she, with her other hand, brings the jib sheet up to the high side with her. Right? You shouldn't ever have to pull the jib sheet in. It just bring that thing with you as you go up to the high side. Both feet on the same side of the centerboard trunk, and then again, it's just climbing a ladder. Step. She's pulling that whole time. You can see that just right here, you can see that was the apex of the heel, the most it's going to heel, and then bang down. So for them, they've got to worry about the over trimming on the flatten, but some good examples here. This video is when we first got the Z420s and we hadn't started facing aft in them yet. So this will hopefully translate pretty well for you guys. Sailing Club 420s. All right. Kurt, this is Danny when he was a freshman.
I was just going to ask you, it looks like him.
Look how tiny he is.
He's still a little guy.
Just a little guy. Again, all those things we were just talking about, not pushing the tiller away too hard. It's just so slow paced. Everything's just so slow until we decide to flatten. Notice how when he slides back, he's very conscious right here to not pull the tiller towards him. Like a lot of drivers you'll watch when they're trying to roll that boat on top of them, they end up yanking the tiller extension mid tack, and then stalls the boat out and causes all sorts of problems. Because right here we're trying to say we want to tack, and those guys that are really trying to use their body weight to roll are just yanking that tiller extension right at the wrong time. So he's very conscious here. He's got his arm nice and straight. That tiller never wavers as he's pushing the tiller away. He uses the main to keep himself in, the main sheet. All right, we talked trimming that main end through the tack is what's gonna turn our boat through head to wind. Again, he turns, faces his body forward. Whoops, sorry. And then here's just step together. Notice that hand switch again. I'm gonna hand switch right there. All right. Notice because we pull that rail every tack, I probably didn't touch on it here, but the driver really needs to concentrate on having that tiller extension hand on the rail, right, and pulling the boat towards them. Hand off there. Now this is pretty much the apex of their heel, right? The boat has rolled this whole time. They pulled that boat over on top of them. Look at the horizon here. All right, they are way over. Way over. And that's as their butts are hitting that rail is when the boat is at the apex. All right, here is when it starts to come down. His hand switch is done. Look how far out that main is. And right here, you can just see a little bubble, right? But as soon as we start flattening, that bubble, the little bit of luff we just had there is gone. All right, that sail is like beam reach angle right now, but because they flatten with such aggression that the apparent wind moves aft, and now we create lift across that sail, and our stern is not going to slide under our boat. We also hadn't started doing the whole not going right to her butt yet. She goes down pretty quickly. We sort of changed, updated that here. Okay, we're going to go through another tack. Slow, trim main, butt aft. Grab the rail, pull, and flatten. we have worked on, or we did work on the crew's footwork after this. All right. Couple things here. We're going to focus on the crew here since we're looking back. Again, I want you to look for that straight arm, feet together. Right. It's even more important when you sail a 420 that you bring both feet. Oh, sugar, sorry. It's even more important in a 420 that you bring both your feet to that windward side, the new, as you're rolling that windward side. Sugar, I did it again. Sorry. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, keep an eye on her footwork and that pulling the boat to them, pull again, big flatten, go. Again, she's pulling on this windward, or excuse me, leeward, now new windward, fair lead here, and pulling the boat over on top of her. All right, right here, again, butt isn't wet, feet are together. All right, when you have your butt, when your butt doesn't get wet, right, it's a lot easier to get in the boat. It's a lot easier to get up to the high side. If you're dragging your fanny in the water, it's really difficult to get to the high side. So just keep that in mind. Again, the first thing she does is reaches for that windward rail. Watch how straight she keeps her arm. That one wasn't as good as the one before. Maybe I should slow that one down. All right, she keeps her arm straight and pulls her butt to the rail the whole time, and then just brings that jib up with her. Again, the apex of the heels when they get to the flatten, bang. Again, we since worked on that flattening so they're not going straight to their butt here. She's probably right-handed, that's why this tack isn't, her arm isn't as straight. And then we have a little fun at her expense. She slips and falls, and anyway. And she just peeks here and says, oh shoot, it's on. All right. This girl here at the crew is probably one of the best, one of the best crews you'll ever see in a tack. Oh, of course. Sorry. We want to focus on a couple things with her here. All right, first they're going into the tack here. Again, real easy on that tiller extension, or on the tiller, well, extension 2. Really easy, you're gonna see the driver come up, slide his butt back, face aft, and then I want you to really keep an eye on this crew. Look at, where's her head right now? What's she looking at there? I'm sure you guys, if you weren't on mute, you would say she's looking at the jib, and we'd say, yep, that's awesome. Looking at the jib, not moving to windward yet. Okay, the jib's fully backwinded. Look how there is no wind, or next to no wind here. All right, so it's really, obviously you guys know it's really hard when it's almost no wind to actually have a good tack, good roll tack. Well, these guys do a pretty good job. Driver's butt moves aft. All right. Turns, faces his body forward. Now watch what the crew does here. See, her arm here is bent here. She just lifts her butt up and then drops her butt on the rail. That's about the extent of what we're doing with that, trying to roll the boat to windward. She just pushes her body up and then drops her butt on the tank there. And again, look how straight up her shoulders are. Really good posture. She's pulling on that windward side, pulling on that block. The driver wimps out just a little. He goes up a little too soon. But watch how she'll come up again, straight arm, pulling that rail to her the whole time. All right, the rudder pops out right there. Driver probably rushed it just a tiny bit, but look how well, I'm gonna just back it up. That straight arm is pulling that boat to her, bring both feet up together, flatten. She'll come in, get a little more trim on the jib here, but right here, she, again, doesn't go to her butt. And the first thing she does is looks at the jib. Look how eased that jib is, all right, on the flatten. There's not a hint of a luff on that jib. Really nicely eased, and then she'll just slowly trim it in. And again, we're going to come back to this here. We're just focusing on the jib right now, looking at that the whole time. All right, now I want you to look at, as she comes in, look at her feet. All right, we have our dangle foot up on the centerboard trunk. She steps into the boat, brings her body on the other side of the boom to make sure that we don't heel to windward. And then you can see her shift her weight, but she doesn't want the boat to heel windward here. We don't want to over flatten. She shifts her weight to her right foot right here. The boat's balances the boat. Now she's like, all right, the boat's going to heel to leeward. I don't want that to happen. Shift my weight back just a little bit. And then finally sits down. So the cruise, what we're trying to do is really engage the crews on the tacks, right? They do so much more work than the drivers. And you drivers, if you're patient and help your crew develop these skills, it's going to really make life easy for you going forward. This, we're going to just focus on the crew's bent arm and what the bent arm, how that affects your heel. All right, everything else is okay. This is really difficult in a Z420. You look where she's, you know, especially if you're on the taller side as a crew, being jammed all the way up forward in front of that fort. You have that nice bench there to sit on. We don't even let you sit on it. She's way forward, and she, you know, for taller crews, it's tough with that vang here. It's not as roomy as on an FJ. But all the things the same, feet together. The driver gets a little aggressive about his butt dragging in the water. But again, we don't need that. We don't need that. And it just makes life, look at this. If you try to drag your butt in the water, look, that's a difficult spot to get up from. Where if you had your butt in here, you'd be able to just kind of stand up. All right, here's the key. Look at her, look how she's pulling her body to the side instead of the rail to her butt. And here's the difference right here. Look at how the rudder, again, never comes out of the water. Never pops out. We're just missing out on a little bit of a extra flat. It's still it's a pretty tack. I mean, this driver is really one of the smoothest people, but there's just not a lot of aggression because we're not getting a big heel to windward. I'll let it play in full. So just that little arm bend is a real difference maker on our rolls. All right, let's save the best for last here. This is about as pretty as a tack you'll ever see. And key to remember is they've been sailing together for probably 2 years at this point. So it does take some time. I'm just going to play it at full speed the first time, and then we'll kind of break this down on why it's so pretty. All right. Couple things, you know, really easy on the turn until you pass head to wind. Once you pass head to wind, then you can put the tiller over, right? We want to get through the tack at that point. Again, the driver's body nice and upright. The crew hasn't moved until that jib backwinds. The jib is backwinded. Now we're not worried about the heel. The driver, look how that tiller extension never, or the tiller never waggles at all because he has his arm straight out there. He's not pulling on that when he rolls. He gets a little aggressive, right? But on the roll, but he's also pretty darn good and been doing this a long time. Their body's facing forward, crew's facing aft, and they come up perfectly in sync here. Look at their hands. I mean, even in exact slow motion, I can't get their hands are like bang on the rail at the same time. The crew pulls that boat over. She's only 100 pounds, right? But that straight arm makes a huge difference. Again, the apex of the roll is right there as they hit the rail. Look how far out of the water the rudder is. That's about as far over as you'll ever be able to tack. And again, the sails are perfectly trimmed to each other. Big flatten for both of them. And the real key of what makes Danny's tack so good is he comes up with his shoulders already out over the side. Gets that hand switch done. It looks a little weird the first time you see it, but his shoulders are already out. So when he's going to flatten the boat, those shoulders are fully extended. There's a lot, you'll see a lot of good tacks. The driver will come up, get the hand switch done, and then throw their shoulders out, right? Where he's able to get that. The whole key here is getting the tip of the mast to accelerate quickly to windward, all right? And because he comes up and he's able to get the hand switch done with his shoulders out over the side, it's immediately, bang, he's popping that thing to windward. The other thing he does is he rolls his shoulders aft in the boat, right? And that allows him to push that tiller extension down. So when the rudder goes into the water, it's a nice, smooth, knifing motion into the water. It's not slapping the water. We're always going to come out of the tack just about 5 to 10 degrees low of our close hauled course, right? And come back up to that close hauled course, excuse me. So when he puts that rudder in, it just has the slightest bit. He has it down, that tiller down just a little bit, and it just slices into the water. Again, both sails are big eased, huge, flat, and there's not a lot of wind here, so it's not like they're not hiking like that because it's windy, right? They're accelerating that sail back to windward, and then bang in at the end. So one more time, I'll play that with some speed. Sorry, it's a little wobbly there. Again, the crew is doing a lot of work, just pulling. She's not throwing her shoulders out a whole lot. And then because both feet are together on the same side for both of them, all we have to do is stand up, step, and then pull the boat to them as they go through the tack. All right, if you guys can get somewhere close to this at some point, you're gonna do quite well. Danny was definitely the best roll tacker in the country. The guy that won the College Sailor of the Year, his coach told him during a team race, stop getting in a tacking duel with this kid. He's crushing you. All right. So we might not have won the team race against Georgetown, but we did have the best boat handling. If you can combine the best boat handling with being a really good sailor, then you're going to have the best of both worlds. But that is about an hour. It's probably enough for you guys to be staring at a screen. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to jump in and ask questions. Kurt and Zach, I think, have my contact information. I should have put another slide up. But anybody that has questions about college sailing or Jacksonville, it's obviously a lot warmer than up there. But definitely reach out, give me a buzz. Kurt has my cell phone and my email address. So feel free to ask him for that if you ever have any questions. But if anyone has any questions right now, I'm happy to stick around for a little bit and hopefully I explain that. The one thing is, as you guys try to really perfect your tacks, just really be patient with yourself. You know, get somebody to videotape you and, you know, be able to break those things down. If any of you guys have videos of you tacking, I'm happy to look at those and kind of help you work through some pieces and parts to try to perfect your tacks. And, you know, if anyone, I've got another slideshow with jibe. So anybody that wants to, you know, do a Zoom call with me, you know, jibing, and we also do boat accelerations and stuff like that. But I hope this helped you guys a little bit.
John, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I hope,
Thank you.
Anybody got any
anybody
quick
else?
questions before we let John go? All right, man, we really appreciate it. Thanks for all your time. This was
Thank you
great.
very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.